You may be wondering how you become quoted or featured in a news story. I'm going to speak specifically from a broadcast news perspective, but this probably applies across the board, especially when you're talking about news magazines or news sources, news outlets, whether they be blogs, websites, or otherwise. So part of it is luck, part of it is timing, part of it is the work or effort you put into building relationships with reporters who may cover or may be likely to cover your story on a day-to-day basis. So what makes it lucky? Well, let's say if I was covering a story as a news reporter and I need to find an expert about a certain specific field of study that my story involves. Like I just want a subject matter expert. I may turn to, at one time I would turn to the Yellow Pages or the phone book to find a source. These days you turn to Google and you would start searching for folks who are sourced and who others refer to or who others quote in other news articles or stories. All right, so that's kind of the luck of it. I mean, if you're a person who's great at your search engine strategy and you come up when a person searches for a certain keyword, then that's going to increase your chances, which isn't exactly luck, but on the reporting side, I mean, they're just looking for a credible person to feature. And so if it happens to be you, well, then that's what makes you lucky. All right. The other part of it is being available. So being available is very important. So once a reporter contacts you, especially if we're talking about a deadline story, that's a daily deadline, you have to make a decision then or there, right then and there, whether or not you're going to make yourself available to speak to the media. And so I've talked to people who are interviewed and they say, hey, I was on the news, but I didn't get any business out of it, or it didn't really drive traffic to my website. Well, that's just the way it goes sometimes. However, by being quoted or sourced in the media, it's tantamount to an advertisement placement. So by being quoted in the media, you're first of all going to get exposure to possible or potential clients or people who are looking for a certain genre of information. You could just, it could help raise your visibility as a credible expert in a subject matter as well. And then, if other media are looking to interview a subject matter expert in the same field as you, by you being featured on one news organization, that makes another news organization likely to call you. All right. But you have to be available. You have to be able to make some time, clear your schedule if you'd like to be featured. Another part of it is just good old PR. So by sending a press release, if something is newsworthy, that could get you featured. Now, understand that as part of the reporter's responsibilities, he or she may get other sources or may talk to the other side to get the opposing opinion or the opposing thought regarding whatever the story is. So you just have to be willing to accept that and just realize that they're only going to paraphrase a certain amount of the information that they get from you or quote a certain amount of the information. So in some senses, you don't really have a lot of control over the message or how you're used. However, you are getting that visibility in terms of the news outlet's coverage. So we talked about, first of all, the lucky part of it. We've talked about being available and just, making sure you can be there when the news calls. And then we've also talked about the PR side of it. So those are basically the three ways. How do you build relationships with reporters? Well, if you're a PR person or if you're a subject matter expert, get involved in local journalism organizations. If there's a National Association of Black Journalists, if they have a local chapter in your area, a Society of Professional Journalists, a press club in your city. I mean, all these places are good places to start in terms of meeting both print, broadcast, online, bloggers, and not so much bloggers, but there are certain blogging, ways to get tapped into the blogging community as well. As a matter of fact, it's probably easier to reach out to bloggers, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. But yeah, build relationships with reporters, and one way you can do that is by just reaching out to them. So send a friendly email. Make sure that they cover stories though that are similar to your field of study or field of expertise. So if you work in transportation, that might be a good you'd want to reach out to a reporter at some point, because there may be a transportation study that's done, especially if we're talking about like a local newspaper or broadcast station. Other times, if there's a big national story, if you're a local expert in that field, That's when relationships pay off, because then when they need that expert in whatever it may be, then they may be likely to call you. Now, if you're reaching out to if you're reaching out to bloggers and that's part of your strategy, it's good to start building a rapport with them. So maybe start commenting on their website, shoot them a friendly email. Make sure that your press release or the information you're sharing matches the content that or the niche that they're filling. So, I sometimes, as a blogger, I get, information about certain fashion events and things like that. I mean, I don't really blog about fashion. I may get a email about a sneaker. Well, I don't really blog about sneakers. So just make sure that you're building a relationship, and then the content or the story that you're pitching matches the content that they're sharing or covering. That's pretty basic. You may want to do some research in terms of the reach. You want to, of course, get the key influencers, so people who are either respected in their community or people who the masses turn to, so a widely read blog. Reach out to people who may be likely to speak or be featured as speakers or share information about their subject, their area of expertise, those kind of things. Just some basic advice on getting your message out there. But always be honest, always speak the truth. If you're in PR, you're expected to, of course, put the best interests of your brand or organization on the forefront. That's expected. But don't ever be deceitful. And, be courteous. If you can't make an interview, or if you have somebody else who you could refer the reporter to, always try to be helpful that way. Because maybe you couldn't do it this time, but the next time it goes around, just by being helpful, the reporter may turn to you. So good luck.